you also use some pretty strong rhetoric sometimes. For example, calling Mr. Klein a cretin, a pathetic liberal, a mama's boy, saying railing against the coexist bumper stickers. So my question to Mr. Klein is, does Mr. West have the temper?
Let me say it this way. I think there's been a lot of very sharp rhetoric, and we all have thick skins around here, and that's the nature of politics. It's a full contact sport. But I also think that at the end of the day, it's about jobs, it's about individuals in the community, and what's most important to them. And I think all the words and the threats and the intimidation and all that kind of stuff, it is a sideshow. It's designed to rile up a lot of people and do a lot of fundraising, and you can accomplish that goal. But I think that the system as I see it, and just again, whether in my business, in my shareholder work, or in my current job, this is about getting along with people. This notion of, I don't want to work with people, I'm not inclusive, and that's exactly wrong. That's a huge contrast between him and me. The temperament of working together means, yes, you stand for a principle. Believe me, I stand for principle. I stand for no offshore drilling. All the other things we talked about, I believe them as strong as Mr. West does. But there's a way of getting things done. The public right now is frustrated because they see the battle. Watch MSNBC or Fox, we see both sides of the equation. It's wrong. It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to everyone. We need to get things done. We've worked on a lot of things. We've accomplished stem cell research and more color grants and a lot of other things. We have a lot of work to do. And I will continue to do what I do, which is to reach out to everyone in the local community, bring their ideas up to Washington, and do the same thing in Washington. Work with every. I think that his temperament is very different from the kinds of people that I like to work with. That's just my personal opinion. And I think the people that are most effective in Congress, the people that are most effective in Congress, whether they be the artists conservative, which I'm perfectly okay with, that are in our delegation or other places, they're people that I get along with. I work very well with. I think the temperament is one who knows how to work together and get along. And sometimes I'm a pretty fun guy. This past weekend at the Italian American Christopher Columbus Day Festival, I was up singing with the Five Boroughs who are a doo-wop band. So I think I have a lot of fun. And I think I do have the right temperament to be in Washington, D.C. because it's a temperament that is about principled leadership. It's a temperament so that people know if Alan West says yes, he means yes. If Alan West says no, he means no. There's not going to be someone that you need to worry about. Is he going to be wishy-washy? He is a principled individual. Now let me tell you something. I don't apologize for the things that I said, and I don't regret the things that I said. But let me tell you what I do regret. I do regret the fact that my Social Security number, my wife's Social So that's what I do regret, because now it is about the destruction of my family. It's about making sure that my family is safe and secure, because Florida is one of the highest places for identity theft. And for this to be a race that's supposed to have honor, integrity, and character, for someone to do something as nefarious and egregious as that, and I don't accept their backhand apology. I don't accept the fact that the Florida Democrat Party has a trap that follows me around 24/7 for any event that I have, including going into churches. I think that is despicable, it is disgusting, and so no. I stand here saying that I am more than willing to go into Washington, D.C., and guess what? There have been many other men who have served in uniform, and women who have served in uniform, that were tough and that were focused, and continue their service to this country and to suit this house. Mr. Ron,
accountability for that to make up for it. But that does not change any of the things that were said in that moment. And that is, you've been out there lecturing everybody in this community about personal responsibility and fiscal responsibility. And this isn't once or twice. Once or twice you should pay a debt, that's one thing. You didn't pay your taxes one time. You didn't pay your credit cards 3 times. You didn't pay your homeowners association. Everybody in this room knows what homeowners condominium fees are. If you don't pay them, your neighbors have to pay them, and they ended up suing you. So you know something? Once or twice is a mistake. 8 or 9 times is a pattern of conduct that is fiscally irresponsible.
I will tell you first and foremost, if I really was a tax cheat, a fiscally irresponsible person, I'd be a member of the Democrat Party. One thing that Ron Klein does not understand. When I was transitioning out of the military, that's very tough to do. And also, it was a time period when I was in Afghanistan.
So if he wants to attack my wife, who was back here trying to maintain a household with our 2 daughters, while I was over protecting him, that's right. What I have a problem with. But understand this, my house is clear. There's no one trying to flip me out of my house or anything like that. But this comes back to the size of the answers. But what about your house? What about the fact that his spending policies in the last 20 months, $2.7 trillion, continue to drive us in debt? The fact that our debt is at $13 trillion. The fact that each and every one of you out there has a price tag on you of $45,000. Those are the things that we need to be concerned about. My house is clear, but the people's house, the House of Representatives, is not clean. All right? It's not clean. Okay, we have to go back to the late 1970s with the Community Reinvestment Act. And when the government decided they would import themselves into the mortgage industry, we saw the fact that they were lowering the standards. We saw the fact that they were penalizing banks who tried to maintain some type of standard. But then you also saw some financial institutions and predatory lending practices. You saw us create an entity called Freddie and Fannie Mae that are now in control of 65 to 70% of the mortgages out there. The main thing that happened was that all of a sudden bad mortgages got lumped in with good mortgages. Those mortgage-backed securities got sold off to banks here in the United States of America. Then they got sold off to banks overseas. So that all of a sudden we did create that financial meltdown that occurred in 2008. But if you understand the genesis of it, the genesis of it was a federal government that all of a sudden decided that owning a home was a right and not a privilege. And they injected themselves into that private sector. And if we're not careful, we continue to allow government to do those type of things and affect the private sector and affect the normal flow. And then also come back and choose who are the winners and the choosers through things like bailout programs. You know, if we get to the point where we are looking at our private sector financial institutions much the same as we do with Little League, where every kid gets a trophy, so that every person up there, no matter what their bad business practices are, the American taxpayer bails them out, then we will continue to have this cycle of failure in our financial industries. So I think the most important thing we have to look at with the foreclosures is starting with government getting involved into the private sector with mortgages. The government, as far as seeing what should have been stopped, people that sit on House Finance Committees supposed to have oversight, continue to allow this to happen. You want to talk about bipartisanship? That was a Republican and a Democrat issue because they lost focus, they lost their eye on the ball. They were more so concerned about minority home ownership than understanding the standards and the economic principles that they violate. Mr. Klein, foreclosure rate down here in Florida. South Florida especially is so high that it brings down the rest of Florida to make it third highest in the nation. Once again, we've got to get money back into the pockets of individuals. There is an individual responsibility that came about, but once again, government set that to occur through those lowering of standards and also things with bad lending practices. I think that we have to be very careful because if we end up having some type of moratorium on foreclosures, then all of a sudden on the backs of the American people, once again, we're going to put that burden on the taxpayers, and we can see another second crash of the mortgage industry. So I think it's so important that we do work with the banks. But one of the key things when you talk to them in the banking industry, they're very nervous about all the regulation and the risks. I mean, they want to get out there and they want to extend that money, but they're really concerned about the risk in doing it. What happens on the backside? Because previously, they were penalized if they did not lower the standard. Okay?